Good morning. Today we've called you here today to address the recent violence that happened on Friday this weekend. What we saw last week was disturbing, and our hearts and prayers go out to the family and loved ones of the victims. Today my staff briefed me this morning on the incidents which occurred this weekend, specifically on the homicides that occurred on Friday, November 21st, 2020. Our BRPD detectives and police officers have been working long hours, exhausting all investigative leads related to the 5 homicides which occurred. Our detectives have been able to clear 3 of the 4 incidents, and I'm going to ask our Deputy Chief, Troy Lawrence, to come up and speak on, give you an update on those incidents.
Good morning, Deputy Chief Troy Lawrence. I want to talk to you about the 4 incidents that happened Friday. The first incident occurred at 4902 Airline Highway, which is the Vera Rose Motel. Uniformed patrol officer were dispatched to room 261. Upon their arrival, they noticed the victim deceased in the room. Based on evidence collected at the scene, it was determined that the victim was actually in the process of selling narcotics to the suspect. Suspect fled the scene on foot. As of this time, that case has not been solved. We have 1 suspect, he's still at large. We're asking the community to, if you saw something, if you heard something, please come forward. Shortly thereafter, just after noon, second homicide occurred. That incident occurred at 2629 South Sherwood Forest, which is the Wise Communications. Based on evidence on that incident, it was determined that Timothy McCoy, who's a suspect, entered the business, robbed the business, and killed the owner. After the business was robbed, Timothy McCoy attempted to exit the business, and what we want to call is a good Samaritan, or a person of interest. All right, he stood up for this community during that incident, which is something that's hard to do. He stood up. I'm going to say it again. He stood up. He did an awesome job. He encountered the suspect upon his exit from the business and subsequently shot and killed the suspect, the would-be robber. At this time, that case has been solved. However, we're still trying to make contact with our Good Samaritan. If you're watching, if you're listening, please come talk to us. Please turn yourself in. The third shooting that Friday occurred at 3751 Eleanor. All right, that was a home invasion. 3 subjects entered that residence. The homeowner shot 2 suspects. They fled the scene in a vehicle. Shortly thereafter, that vehicle was stopped by uniformed patrol officers at 8008 Airline Highway, which is the racetrack. Upon their arrival, 1 subject was pronounced deceased on scene. The other subject was transported to the hospital. A warrant has been issued for his arrest. Once he's finished with surgery, he will be transported to our parish prison. That case is also cleared. The final incident, which occurred at 1001 Astor Street, victim had been in an argument with 2 black male subjects. 2 black male subjects shot and killed the victim. Based on witnesses at the scene, and again, help from the community. It's very vital to what we do here in Baton Rouge. We need help from the community. Based on those witness statements, our uniformed patrol officers were able to contact that vehicle with those 2 subjects 45 minutes afterwards. Both subjects were arrested. I repeat, both subjects were arrested based on community involvement. That's very vital. So of the 4 homicides, we have 3 that's cleared. and one is not. Thank you.
Good morning, thanks for coming. Having been here in this system for 45 years, Friday was surely a very unusual day. Can't think of a day like Friday before. May have been one years in the past, but Friday was surely unique in how many people were actually killed, died, and eventually went to prison. I also think that the clearance rate by the Baton Rouge Police and Sheriff's Office is also important to note. Really, what I wanted to talk about is that generally, murder is no accident. Generally, the people that are involved as the victim and the defendant and suspects know each other. It is somewhat unusual in Baton Rouge when you have no connection to the other, such as potentially an armed robbery or a home invasion. So we always want to ask family members, parents, neighbors, guardians, do you know what your young man generally is doing, what he's up to? Does he have guns? Why does he have a gun? Who's he hanging with? Do you really know what he's doing, when he's doing it? Please do what you can do to help us prevent murders. We hate to go to these scenes, hate to have to work them. What's real frustrating, particularly frustrating Friday and disheartening, is that when you know and you see, as I'm able to do all night long, all of these men and women, the one that you don't see here, that you never see on camera, but always the ones that are running and getting out of their car late at night, cold, hot, wet, sweaty. They're working all night long. They're collecting data from all different types of sources that they can to try to prevent these homicides from occurring. And it's just disheartening to see that happen. Community is very frustrated, as all of us are, because we know they're working as hard as we can work. So I think the message is clear, as the Deputy Chief indicated. We'd surely love for the community to continue giving us information to help us solve crimes, but we'd really like for the community to help us prevent crimes and take action in your hands and speak with your loved one, your family member, making sure you know what they're doing. Tell them that killing and murder and violence is wrong on all levels, and we believe that hopefully we can avoid another Friday as we've seen this past Friday from occurring again. Thank you.
Johnny Dunham with Crime Stoppers. If the public has any information related to the cases that Deputy Chief Lawrence spoke about, we implore them to contact Crime Stoppers at 344-7867 or 344-STOP. Crime Stoppers has a proven history and record over 38 years of being in this community with over 13,000 felony arrests, over $2 million in rewards paid out. And we want to implore the public to contact us, not only with information about crimes that have occurred, but also you can call us about information on crimes that you know might occur. And we can relay that information to the authorities that need to know. If you know two people that may be beefing or have issues with each other, that a possibility or information that a crime may occur because of that, call Crime Stoppers at 344-STOP. Let's get ahead of this situation. You can call and remain anonymous. Crime Stoppers is a proven record of anonymity. It's held up in court, and we ask that you contact us not only for information on crimes that have occurred, but information on crimes that may occur. And we'll forward that information to the authorities so that they can do some type of intervention. We work closely with the Sheriff's Office, with the Baton Rouge Police Department, with the State Police, with all the local agencies here in an 8-parish area. And we want the public to be more proactive. Let's get out in front of this and let's stop some of the incidents of violence before they occur. You can call Crime Stoppers by phone. You can go on our website at Baton Rouge at crimestoppersbr.com and submit a tip, or you can download the P3 app. It's an app on your cell phone. It's called P3. You can download it, click Baton Rouge Crime Stoppers, and you could submit a tip that way. You can also submit video as well as pictures through the P3 app. So we ask the community to get involved, and let's do something about this crime. Thank you.
Good morning. Captain Rodney Walker with East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office. This violence has to stop, and we can't do it alone. If anybody sees a young person going down the wrong path, please let's give them something positive. We have enough negativity in the world. So please, if you see something, say something. We need as much help as we can get. I mean, I'm seeing so many young people doing things that I know they shouldn't be doing, but if they have the encouragement and the support that we all can give, please, let's step forward. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Robinson. I'm a grieving mother. My son was murdered, Baton Rouge, Zion City, broad daylight, May the 2nd, 2018. I know somebody saw something. Friday, 5 people were murdered in Baton Rouge. Monday morning, 5 families going to a funeral home to make arrangements for their loved ones. It's not an easy task. This don't go nowhere. The pain is forever. Mothers, I need y'all to get a hold to your kids. The violence got to stop. Stop the guns from coming into your homes. If you know your child is beefing with somebody, you know your son carrying a gun, if he bring that gun in your house, call Change. It's the organization that I represent. Since my son was murdered, my son dead. So I'm here for y'all families. I have mothers call me every day. How do you get through it? You don't. Do it get better? No. It don't get no better. My son is gone. So I'm asking the community, I'm asking the mothers, if you know your son or daughter bringing guns in your house, call Change. We'll come pick them up. You know if your son is beefing with somebody, your daughter beefing with somebody, call Change. We'll come talk to them. But we need your help. We need the community's help. You don't want that knock at your door to tell you your son been murdered, your daughter been murdered. That's a painful call. And I'm gonna give you Change's phone number. It's 225-267-7252. 225-267-7252. Baton Rouge, we're a village, and we need to come together and raise our kids as a village. Because nobody's coming to get you. So we're gonna come to help you. And we need everybody's help. The community, you have to come together. You see something, say something. Thank you.
One of the things I want the community to know is that we're not sitting back to wait for this situation to improve. Even in times of crisis, the protection of our citizens is non-negotiable. Our officers are working hard every single day. We are committed to working with our community to identify and arrest that small group of people, that 6% who are responsible for violent crime in our community. And the suspects in these incidents that were just previously spoken about, they are part of that 6%. They're part of that 6%. Wasn't their first time. Wasn't their first run-ins with the law. The increase in homicides are not unique to our city, unfortunately. There are other cities in Louisiana and across our nation that are experiencing similar spikes in homicides and shooting incidents since the COVID-19 pandemic has presented stress, anxiety, uncertainty, economic hardship, and trauma to our communities. Many of the institutions, the systems, and the programs that help reduce crime, to help victims, that help communities cope with everyday stress, were interrupted by this COVID-19 pandemic. Summer programs stopped. Playgrounds were empty. Churches closed. Domestic violence victims who were stuck in their houses with their abusers. 600% increase in intimate partner homicides. The person recovering from that monster called addiction, whether he was on drugs or alcohol, no longer have those counseling sessions, that group support that he or she once had. Community canvases that we did with truce, the call-ins, where we speak to individuals who are in group violence. All of that took a hold during this pandemic. And the interruption of the cycle of violence, the community events we have, where we're able to have conversations during the summer programs, our boxing with the badge, kicking with the badge, balling with the badge, and so many community events, they didn't happen this year because of COVID. When we look at crime in Baton Rouge, we follow trends. And those trends, 2 years in a row, we were seeing reductions in crime. But the trends are a little different during this pandemic. We're seeing more daytime homicides and shooting incidents like we hadn't seen before. Closer relationships between victims and suspect. Still have group violence, multiple addresses being shot multiple times. Victims shot at more than one time. We've seen interruptions in the drug trade, drug dealers robbing drug dealers. But we are making the adjustments with the new data that the pandemic has presented. And here are some of the specific things that we're doing in Baton Rouge. Our rapid response team, in partnership through our Crime Gun Intelligence Center, are responding to shooting incidents, dedicated resources with our federal partners and state police. 24 police officers have been reassigned from specialized divisions to uniform patrol, directed patrol efforts, and what we call areas of concern where we're seeing data. But our non-fatal shooting and gun violence reduction assessment, that was presented to the City Council last week. We presented that, and it's a long-term strategic effort where we've identified around 27 action steps to reduce gun violence in the city of Baton Rouge. And we have already began the implementation plan of those recommendations. And these recommendations come from experts from around the country who we meet with twice a month. And we talk about the data. We talk about what's going on in the police department. 5 crime analyst positions. We're still pushing forward with that to house the real-time crime center. We have our bi-weekly VCU meetings at state police with our federal partners, FBI, ATF, the Sheriff's Office, probation and parole, and all other law enforcement partners in East Baton Rouge Parish. We have our weekly GVI, our Group Violence Interruption Meeting with Troops. We assigned a full-time police officer to that initiative to help us disrupt some of the violence. And we also receive support from our U.S. Marshal's Office to help us get those violent offenders off the street more quickly. And we actually have one of their group gang experts that are coming in, meeting with us to see how they can help us even more by providing training and technical assistance to address group violence. So we are working as a law enforcement community, as a partner with the community that we serve to address violence. But again, I want to thank the Baton Rouge community for providing valuable information which led to the arrest and identity of these suspects from Friday. And we know we cannot do it alone, but the Baton Rouge police officer and detectives response, their great response, and the way that we're solving these homicides says a lot about the good work that our detectives are doing. But we're solving them, we have to start preventing them. Mayor President.
Good morning, and thank you to all of our law enforcement partners who are speaking here today. Baton Rouge, what you see here is a united effort working hand in hand with community members as we face violence head on. Our greatest priority is indeed the safety of our neighborhoods. Chief Paul, Hiller Moore, the Sheriff's Department, our partners with Crime Stoppers, and all other partners, change all of our partners this morning. It is very clear that we are all working together, working hard to protect the people of East Baton Rouge Parish. I must also acknowledge all of you in the community who have called Crime Stoppers, volunteered with community partners and churches, and been on the front lines of neighborhoods in an attempt to mentor our youth. Your partnership with law enforcement is indeed essential. As Mayor President, I'm going to keep supporting our law enforcement with the resources they need to be effective. As you've heard, we know that this pandemic has brought a rise in violence across the country. We also know there's an increase, as you heard, in domestic violence, domestic abuse. But here in our community, all of our partners working together, we are continuing to fight back. And one of my missions has been to cut off the violence at its roots before we see it play out in local media reports. Make no mistake about it, I take violence very seriously here in our community. But what if we could stop violence before it happens? You've heard people talk about being proactive. What if the underlying causes of violence were addressed before it spills out into our streets? Well, using CARES Act funding that has been specifically designed for this type of action, we are rolling out an anti-violence program in our neighborhoods and in our schools that are 100% community-based through the Safe, Hopeful, and Healthy initiative. The program aims to intervene, prevent, and treat the underlying causes of violence. It's a complement to what law enforcement is doing. Just last week, we hosted a public meeting at the River Center Library where violence interrupter Akila Sherrills, a community peace activist based in Newark, New Jersey, shared three-pronged approach to addressing violence through the public health lens. With this help, we're immediately employing those types of tactics in Baton Rouge. And so through the Safe, Hopeful, and Healthy initiative, there will soon be outreach workers and violence interrupters in our community, connecting our residents at greatest risk with the resources they need to break the cycles of violence, whether that's access to job training, education, mental health, drug rehabilitation, nutritional food, or transportation. We know violence happens when poverty intersects with desperation. And so we will continue to close those gaps and build on the resources already working in our community. Organizations like Truce, Change, the Bridge Agency, and 2911 Mentoring are on the front lines of peace for families in our community. Our partners at STAR and the Butterfly Society have been reaching out to victims of domestic violence, giving them a place to find safety. Once again, I also would like to acknowledge our partners at Truce. They have been in the community and working with our law enforcement agencies to address the culture of violence for some time now. And we are now working to partner with them with the Safe, Hopeful, and Healthy initiative. We're going to keep building on these relationships and keep partnering with our community members. Our residents, more than anyone, are ready to see an end to violence in our community. And we're going to keep creating opportunities where our citizens can work with us to make a difference. We are going to keep working to protect you, and we stand united and ready to face the challenge. Thank you all.
Before we conclude, we'll take any questions that you may have, but I want to say this. You know, when I looked at these incidents that happened Friday, and I was on the scene, I know Hilla was there, and watching the grieving families, you know, what do you tell a loved one when they lost somebody? And in our efforts, when we talk to our detectives, making an arrest in these cases brings some closure, not much. And, you know, when we look at our average of 60% clearance rate that our detectives are at, probably a little higher than that right now, we've been consistent in that area, we want to continue to do better. One homicide is far too many. But when I looked at this weekend and these incidents, we would not have solved these cases if we were not getting calls from the community. and how we followed up in such a rapid, and it wasn't just our detectives, it was a uniformed patrol officers, there was a chase, it was our detectives following up, and just to see that synergy of our uniformed detectives working, uniformed patrol working with our detectives to put the pieces of the puzzle together it's good to see that we are breaking down those barriers in community police relations, because people are talking, and we're going to continue to encourage that, okay? Any questions? We're going to go left to right, is that okay? All right.
I guess my question's kind of twofold. One, can you give us the exact number of homicides so far this year? And, you know, doing what we do, we kind of always hear other conversations and we're just kind of just walking around as a business. There was a woman downstairs this morning who was complaining about her neighborhood, people shooting too much. Just, she was worried about having to tell her son to get down all the time. What do you tell someone like her who's living amongst this and it's just too much for them?
Yeah, so for the first question you asked, right now we're at about 102 total homicides, and that's 89 actual. When you take out negligent homicides and accidental homicides, it's 89, but it was a specific intent. On the young lady you just spoke of, we get calls like that. I've received several emails, some from the mayor's office and others, where there's concern. In fact, we were at a community meeting the other day, and some in the community expressed that. So what we do now is we actually send that to our patrol divisions, and we push that down to our captain level. And we ask the local commanders and specialized divisions to come up with a plan specific to that area. So in that particular case, we can take her complaint. I can tell you I've received several over the past few months, and we've responded, and I've gotten positive feedback from our response to address that issue. So if you can give me her name, I will put her in contact with our deputy chief, and we will respond to her complaint. That one is actually pretty easy to address that at the community level, and we have several success stories. But what we need is, we need you to call, we need you to tell us so that we can respond. But we get emails all the time.
I don't know if this question for you or Mr. Moore. Could you tell us what's going to happen and when you think about a 15-year-old being involved in a first-degree murder case of one on Astor, what's going to happen in that?
I'll let Hiller speak to that. Hiller.
Really, it's kind of premature. It's a good question, but kind of premature to answer because it's not sure what the particular involvement is of him versus others. And history, background, facts, it's really early for us to answer on that. But surely potential that could be an adult charge, but at this point, I just can't answer that.
Yes, sir.
Chief, I believe the word, or the term y'all used to describe was a good Samaritan. How were y'all able to determine that the man that was seen shooting outside of Wise Communications was indeed a good Samaritan in that case?
There's a lot of evidence, and keep in mind, this is still under investigation. And there is a video evidence from the establishment, but there's a lot of video evidence from concerned citizens who provided evidence from their cell phones to help us kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together. So it's one to really look at the entire picture of what happened. If we didn't have that community piece where the community was providing us with information and our detectives on the scene putting that information together based on what we had. So yeah, it was a combination of our investigative efforts, what we saw in the video, but a big piece of that is community involvement.
So are you planning to make an arrest in that case? Like, is that person a suspect, or you just want to bring them in for questioning?
He's a person of interest for questioning right now.
Okay. Also, it seems like most of these were committed like during a robbery or home invasion. Do you guys have any thoughts on like why we're seeing this apparent rise in specifically those types of crimes?
They're still under investigation right now, and I think he spoke to those that it appears that robbery was the motive. Obviously, we look at each one of these individually, but right now at this stage, that's what it appears to be. So last question.
So Earl kind of brought up a point with a 15-year-old in one of the cases. From what I saw, everyone who has been a suspect or been arrested and involved with all these cases is 29 years old or younger. And I know you said, you know, there's, before when you had spikes in crime like this, there's, you know, those bad actors and small group of the community. What do you say this says to what's happening right now when you have such a number of people who are under a certain age being involved in all this?
Well, look, I think when you look at crime, there's so many. I think the mayor spoke on it. What we're learning in many of these cases that prior to someone committing a horrific act like that, they've communicated their intentions to someone in their inner circle. You heard Change talk about it. Look, we need family members and those persons who have information that a person is going to commit the crime to help save their life or someone else's before it happens. And I think that's that key piece of prevention. We do a pretty good job of putting the bad guys in jail, bad actors in jail, those who've committed crimes. We want to start preventing crimes. And I think it's this holistic approach that the mayor's talking about strategically is going to get us there. Look, changing a culture is hard, and we're changing a violent culture here. And 2 years in a row, we've seen some success. Some challenges were presented, but we're making those adjustments, and we're going to continue to move forward to keep this community safe. Thank you.
I know you said last question, but the Coymore video, do you plan to release that body cam footage once the incident occurs?
I'm sorry, which one?
The Coy, the football, LSU football
Yeah.
player, do you plan on releasing that body cam footage once the internal affairs investigation is over?
Once the investigation is completed, then we will release it just like we will release it with any other investigation that we have, okay? Thank you.